In the previous video, we created VPC with subnet, and this was a subnet. And in initial phase, we created this VM, and that particular VM having internal IP as well as external IP. But if we're talking about the production environment, over there, we are not going to use a dynamic IPs. At the time of creating the VM, we have not choose or we have not defined any type of IPs. Either it may be internal or external. But if we're talking about the production environment over there, first of all, we have to reserve the IPs, and it call it as a static IPs. We are assigning the static IPs to the virtual machines. So over there, what we are doing it, first of all, we have to reserve the IP. If need to apply the internal IP, then we have to reserve the internal IP only. And if is there any requirement to expose the VM directly over the outside network without a load balancer, that particular time we have to define the external IPs as well over the production environment. That particular time, first of all, we have to reserve the IPs, and after that we have to assign those reserves IPs. We call it as a static IPs. Need to assign the static IPs to the virtual machine. In this video, we will see how to create a static IPs. So first of all, we let's remove the resource which we created last time. Now I have removed the custom VPC with subnet. I'm going to Terraform documentation over there. I'm I'm going to search compute address. This is the documentation. So it's going to create a VPC. After that, it's going to create a subnet, and this parameter going to create a static IP. So let me paste it over there. So what we call it as a we will call it VPC network Terraform subnet internal address. Resource name will be my static internal address. Subnet name will be subnet will coming from compute subnet, and this is the subnet name. The subnetwork will be Google Compute Subnet, uh, Google Compute Subnet, and then after that we have to define the dot. After that we have to define the subnet group name VPC network TF subnet. After that we have to define the self link. It will automatically capture the free IPs from this subnet, and the address type will be internal. And here we are not going to define the IP address manually. It will pick and automatically free IPs, whatever available inside the subnet. Also, we are going to define the external IPs as well. So let's copy paste the above resource parameters. At the time of creating the static or reserve the static external IP, we don't require the subnet because subnet having some CIDR range and it will use for the internal IP address purpose. So need to remove this line. And here, if you check about the documentation, over there its address type is defined as an internal. And if we try to find out the address type, how many options are available, you can see that over the address type you can define either it will be an internal address do you require to reserve it, or the external address. We are going to define the external over the parameters as we require the external IP as well. Need to change the current working directory. Here we have this file available which we created with the help of Terraform. We are using the Google provider. We are creating the VPC. After that, we are going to create a subnet. After that, it will going to create a static IP inside the subnet IP ranges and reserve it as an internal IP address. Also, we are going to define the static IP or reserving the static external IPs. Now the time to fire the Terraform init. After that, we have to fire the Terraform plan to check the syntax of the TF file. It's throwing an error that it didn't find the CKS or the GSN file for the service account. It will, as we already discussed that we required the JSN key file for authentication purpose. Now we have a JSON file also available inside the same current working directory. I'm going to fire the command again related to Terraform plan. It will again going to check the Terraform file. If everything will fine, it will give the information how many resources it will going to create. It will going to create a 4 different type of resources. So how many, what are those 4 resources? First of all, it will going to create a VPC, and then it will going to create a subnet. After that, no, it will going to reserve the external IP address. Then it will going to reserve the internal IP address. It will going to create a VPC. Also, it will going to create a subnet. Now the time to fire the Terraform apply command. Four resources has been created. Now the time to check it over the console. Here this Terraform VPC created. After that, my subnet created. These are the 2 resources. After that, let's create the IP addresses. You can see that my static external IP address, my static internal IP address, and it's showing that in use none. These 2 external IP address are not in use, and these 2 static IP addresses are created with the help of Terraform. After applying yes, it's not throwing what will be the IP address created by the Terraform. So for that we are using the output variable, and in next video we will see how to apply the output variable, so that the time when resource is created, it will show over the same terminal that these are the resources created with the help of Terraform. So before doing that, let's destroy the environment. No, the normal.